and our meeting tonight is now open for sharing testimonies of healing through Christian Science. Chardell.
Good evening, and thank you for the readings and our beautiful music. First, I would like to thank my practitioner for all the prayers and spiritual guidance over the past 4 years, and then the members of this church for their kindness and support. Since coming to Plainfield, everything in my life is opening up, including new skills and confidence. I am able to help others in small ways with their work and be of real use to God and our church. Hymn 324 is just right to express my feelings, and here is the first stanza. Take my life and let it be consecrated, Lord, to Thee. Take my moments and my days, let them flow in ceaseless praise. Take my hands and let them move at the impulse of Thy love. And thank you.
Thank you. Jeremy.
I am very grateful for this church and for all I'm learning here. On Sunday morning, I woke with a lot of joy. But then after the service, throughout that afternoon, I started to really struggle with this sort of muted, bland feeling that washed over me. I kept struggling through the day, and I did what I thought was my best to keep my joy while finishing my work. I went to sleep that night thinking, perhaps tomorrow will be better. In the middle of the night, I woke up and realized that that feeling of joylessness was still there. And at that moment, I said to myself, Jeremy, you just accepted it, and that's not what you've been learning to do here. You need to fight. So then, then I let that joyless feeling know exactly how I felt. And the truth is, I love this work, and I love this church. Everything about my life is wonderful now, and no bleak feeling is going to get me away from that. So I kept at it until the feeling was gone. And after a few minutes, I was able to get back to sleep, and in the morning I woke as I always do, excited to get back to work. I'm very grateful for this reminder of the need to stand porter at the door thought, as Mary Baker Eddy tells us to do in Science and Health. Before coming to Plainfield, when similar feelings presented themselves, I used to just say, let's see where this goes, and it always went down. I know now that is not right thinking, nor is it having the expectation of good. Joy is one of the fruit of the Spirit listed in Galatians 5, and that means I have the right to claim it all day, every day. What a wonderful change this is for me, and I'm so grateful to Christian Science, this church, and to my practitioner for showing me the better way. Thank you.
Hello, this is Diana from Berlin and Vienna. I'm in Berlin now, and I would like to express my gratitude for learning about Ann Beals and her website called The Bookmark, which I heard about through at least one of Plainfield Church's discussions some months back. At that time, I had looked at the website and thought about all the books that I would purchase and have shipped to me when I was back in the States. But when I was back at Christmas, I just didn't get myself organized in time to get the books delivered before I returned to Europe. This weekend, I looked again at the website and realized that I can purchase them as a downloaded copy. I personally don't love to read from books on the computer screen, but I decided to at least purchase and download her book Animal Magnetism, which I had been really feeling the need to read. I have only just begun the book, but I must say how much it helps to understand how to handle animal magnetism. I remember months ago, probably in a roundtable discussion, Gary gave us 3 steps to handle animal magnetism. They were 1, see what error is trying to do. 2, know that it can't be done. And 3, see to it that it can't be done. I loved learning about these 3 steps, but I didn't feel that I really understood how to accomplish step number 3, see to it that it can't be done. I do believe that this book is going to help lead me there. I would like to express my gratitude for Ann Beals' work, as part of the remnant. And I would like to quote part of her biography that I found on the website to explain to those who don't know about her how she became part of the remnant. So this is from her biography from the website thebookmark.com. Quote, early in her practice work, she realized the need for writings that explained more fully how to demonstrate Christian Science. As she watched the steady decline of the Christian Science Church, her concern for the future of the movement led her, in 1974, to publish independently of the church organization her booklet, Animal Magnetism. She moved to California in 1977 and resigned from the church. In 1980, she started the Bookmark with the conviction that the time had come when deeper writings on Christian Science had to be published and made available to everyone. For over 25 years, she has published and promoted many profound works on Christian Science. Now, I do believe she has passed, which is why we were talking about her in church discussions. So in closing, I would like to thank all of you at Plainfield for making me aware of her work. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Gary.
Thank you, Diane, for pointing out the importance of being able to handle animal magnetism. That was a tough one for me for a long time. And as I look back on the training I've received here in the Plainfield Church, one of the primary reasons why it was so tough for me was because I arrived at Plainfield as, I guess, a coward. I really was unwilling to acknowledge that we are in a battle between good and evil. When I got here, our practitioner and teacher, Mrs. Evans, would often remind us that we were in a battle. And I remember at first, I would kind of bristle at that. I was under the mistaken belief that you're supposed to go through life peacefully and be diplomatic and let things resolve themselves with the power of love, as I thought it was at the time. And the idea of being in a battle just wasn't something that I wanted to accept. And for quite a time, I had difficulty with relationships. I mean, business relationships, personal relationships, especially contentious relationships. I shied away from confrontation. I didn't like it. I didn't know how to deal with it. And so I ran from it often. And it created a lot of problems for me. It even affected my health. But our dear Mrs. Evans continued to remind us that we were in a battle and we'd better be fighting on the right side. Well, one morning I woke up and it clicked. I realized, yes, we are in a battle here. It's a battle of good and evil, and the battle is the Lord's. And the battle is not personal. My reluctance to accept that we were in a battle was that I was concerned about hurting people's feelings. I had personalized the battle. And when I was able to impersonalize it, everything in my life changed. I started to speak up when I felt things were wrong. I was less concerned about hurting people's feelings. and much more concerned about the right thing being done or said. And if anybody had their feelings hurt, I stopped caring, because I knew it wasn't personal, and I knew it was the best thing for them to wake them up, to let them see that it's not personal, because what is right for one is right for all, and what's good for one is good for all. And that changed a lot of things in my life. And since then, I have gained much greater confidence that God is in control of my life. And I think for the first time, I started taking step number 3 when I recognized what animal magnetism was trying to do. I didn't let it happen. I'm so grateful to Mrs. Evans for teaching me this really important lesson. I'm so grateful to Mary Baker Eddy for fighting the battles before us and showing us how to win with God. And it's so good to be here with you all tonight.
Thank you. Betty from California, go ahead.
Good evening. I'm very grateful for the round table this past Sunday, March 17th. During the round table, we talked about rejoicing in another's good, not coveting or competing for good bestowed on others, and to know that when God gives to one, he gives to all. The discussion came around to the topic of being an invalid, and that it was a state of thought that would take the oil that belongs to someone else, and to be careful not to enable the error. As I listened, I jotted down the word invalid, and next to it the word state of thought. And as the discussion progressed, I looked at it and saw in a different way as an invalid is an invalid state of thought. Well, that was a light bulb going on. I looked up invalid in the 1828 Webster's Dictionary, and it said, the first one, weak, of no force, weight, or cognizance. Number 2, in law, having no force, effect, or efficacy. Void, null, as an invalid contract. So then I was thinking, so an invalid, or any error for that matter, has no force, effect, or power. Error is null and void and is not based on law, but it is an invalid contract. So error is basically a great big nothing, which destroys itself when found out. So very grateful for this roundtable discussions on Sunday mornings at the Plainfield Christian Science Church Independent. Grateful for Christian Science, Mary Baker Eddy, and for practitioner help over the years. Thank you.
Thank you. Benjamin.
Yeah, thank you. I was thinking today, it says, count your blessings. Sometimes it's good to sit back and just think through about yourself, the journey you have come through. I was thinking about mine today, and I do it quite often, but today was so special for me because I was thinking through this journey from as far as I could remember. And I realized how much God have led me, how far I came through. I was amazed, really. And many of these things that God showed me, I didn't realize what they meant at the moment. But like he said in the Bible, when Saul was converted, when he became a follower of Christ, he told Ananias that I will show him how much he will suffer for my name's sake. And that time, Paul didn't know that he will have to go through a lot of stuff just to prove God. But at the end, that was actually what made him the best of all the apostles of Christ. What he was willing to do, to suffer for Christ, and everything that God showed him. And I was thinking about mine today, what God showed me through my journey to this day. And just like Paul, I found out this actually what made me who I am today, not because I was born a Christian or I was lucky to be born from the region that are Christian. There are millions of people who are born in a Christian church, Christian country, Christian families, but that's not what makes us Christian, not because of who you are born to or who your parents or great parents or the country you came from. If you don't have experience of following God, following Christ, being able to go through this journey and overcome, you have to overcome all these things that the devil, the enemy will throw at you. And I remember how that I overcame on my way to this point. Tears was coming out of my eyes. And I was full of praise to God. Because it wasn't by my own might, not by my own wisdom, but by the wisdom of God that I was able to overcome and to be able to stand here tonight. I'm grateful for what God showed me through this journey. I'm grateful for who I am through Him, what I will become tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, this is Bruce. I'm grateful for a wonderful blessing that happened just this morning. I wanted to give thanks to God for it. I had a chance to take my 2 grandchildren to school this morning. We got out on the highway, and there was a traffic issue there that slowed us down. We were like crawling along like at 5 miles an hour for a couple of miles, which took quite some time. Well, we finally got through the congested traffic area. Then I asked the kids in the back of the truck I was driving, are we going to get to school in time? One of them says, well, I don't know. But the other one said, remember, think positive. It's like this kid was trying to tell us, including me, be receptive to what God can do, because He most certainly can. And wouldn't you know it, right after that, it seemed like I hit every green light, and I showed up right at the school, right at the end of the time period where they were admitting children into school from this one door for parents and guardians that drive their kids to school. In other words, they got there on time. So I'm thanking God that that young child said, think positive. And I'm thanking God that He did indeed take over and got the kids to school on time. When at a time it looked like it may not happen. But with God's grace, it most certainly did. Lil.
I was remembering again a wonderful healing I had not long ago of lots of pain in my legs. I suddenly had difficulty standing up, sitting down, and even just sitting. I'm so grateful to God for his healing power and to my practitioner for her teaching, prayers, and tough love. The negative, depressive thinking I had been entertaining interfered with my being of use to God. Not long after getting practitioner help, the pain stopped. I'm so grateful for God's healing power and my practitioner's tough love, teaching, and prayers in correcting and uplifting my thinking. I'm just so grateful. And thank you for those wonderful readings.
Thank you. Dale from Virginia, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you so much for those most beautiful readings. The healing influence of unity under God. Worshiping God as all in all and acknowledging the Christ ever with us, as Christ Jesus told us, certainly is a vital healing presence. When it was read on the day of Pentecost, when all were filled with the Holy Ghost, and everyone heard others speak in their own language, it made me think of the experience of Francis Thurber Seal. In the late 1890s, there was a request for Christian Science to be introduced into Germany. Ms. Seal, quite new to Christian Science, was asked to go, and blessings followed her every step of the way. Hardly anyone spoke English in the places she went, yet people understood when she talked about God. She was called by many in desperate circumstances, and all were healed. There was one incident that was really very lovely. She went to a small village in Norway where she healed many people. And there was one group, though, that they seemed very melancholy. And she was told that it was because their God sent suffering and disease upon his people. And Miss Seal answered at once. She said, "Oh, no, there is no such God. God only sends good and joy and blessing." And she continued to talk of God as revealed in Christian Science and told how we demonstrated this in health and life, the abundant life promised by Christ Jesus. She said, "The words of the Master, as recorded by Luke, were fully proved in that little flower-decked room in the far north that autumn evening. Quote, 'Take ye no thought how or what thing ye shall answer, or what ye shall say, for the Holy Ghost shall teach you in the same hour what ye ought to say.'" End quote. She said, "I uttered truths there that I had never before known." And after that, there was an animated discussion amongst those who didn't speak any English, and she found out through the host who did speak English that they understood her. They said, "They do not know a word of English, yet they understood what you have said about God." Miss Seal said, "After 30 years, I cannot think of it without feeling a feeling of awe, a sense of the Christ presence." This is just a most lovely book that is on the church website. It can be downloaded on your computer, or it can be bought on the online store. It's Christian Science in Germany by Francis Thurber Seal. And I am so grateful for all the wonderful inspiration and healing work on our church website. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Nancy from New Jersey, go ahead.
Yes, good evening. I just wanted to thank you for the beautiful readings tonight and this beautiful service and all the testimonies. I wish to express my gratitude for the church website and the audio recordings, which have been providing me with much comfort, and for my practitioner's loving and steadfast support. Through my practitioner's support, I'm so grateful for a recent and very quick healing that I had of pain on the left side of my body. I am so deeply grateful for her reminder to watch my thinking. And I am so deeply grateful for this healing and for all that I am learning here at Plainfield. And I am so very grateful to be here tonight. Thank you.
Amanda from Missouri, go ahead.
Thank you. Florence, thank you so very much for tonight's reading. Tonight, I would like to express my gratitude for the lesson sermon on man from a couple weeks ago. And I actually went back to work with it again today, and I'm sure I will continue to do so. I'm so thankful to the lesson writer. It has helped me with some fear that I've had about certain members of my family, and also helped me to see them and others I know in a far better view than I had been. At times when working with this lesson, I would insert the name of a loved one in place of the word man. And I found that doing this helped make this lesson of such particular practical use for me. But it was also an aid in healing some negative feelings of frustration and anger that I had been harboring against a family member who I loved dearly. But I'd been frustrated with him due to some behavior that I thought was really wrong. And I knew that what I was doing was equally wrong. It was selfish and hypocritical and really reinforcing this false and negative picture of him. But I was having such a hard time getting past these feelings. And I really don't know how to describe it other than these negative feelings that I had been feeling towards him essentially dissolved. And they were replaced by such a sense of love and compassion and a feeling of tenderness for him. And it was as though the blinders that I'd had on were removed, and I could just see clearly that that bad behavior was not him, it was not a part of him, and it had never been a part of him. And I remembered so clearly all of the loving things that he had done for me over the years, and that's what replaced the other negative feelings that I'd been having. And one night last week, I had to work quite late, and so by the time I got home, it was in the early hours of the morning. And I was rushing about to get some home duties finished and realized that I had accidentally pocket dialed him. And I thought that I had ended the call in time, but I hadn't, and he wound up calling back right away. And in that call, I learned that he was actually feeling quite ill and having a very hard time. And I felt the need to stay up and pray for him, which I did. And I just remember feeling this overwhelming sense of love for him, not just my love, but our Father, Mother, God's perfect love for him, seeing him as this divine, perfect son, the true man as we were taught in that lesson. The next day, I texted him to see if he was feeling better, and the response I got was emphatically, "I am," with a quotation mark. And while he's not antagonistic to Christian Science, it's just not something that's currently a part of his life. But it seemed right to share with him that I had prayed for him. And he called me shortly thereafter to thank me. And he said that early in the morning he'd become very worried because his symptoms were so severe, and he had never experienced anything quite like this before. But he was eventually able to go to sleep, and when he woke up, it was a night and day difference. And he said, "I don't know what you did, but whatever it was, it worked." And he expressed such gratitude, genuine gratitude and appreciation. And I, in turn, was so incredibly grateful to tell him that he had been prayed for, that I told him about Plainfield, and that he could reach out whenever he felt he needed support. And again, I'm so very grateful for this lesson, for all that I am learning through this church, the teachings, our studies, all that's offered. And of course, I'm so very thankful to Mrs. Eddy. There are just not enough words to convey appreciation for what she has done for mankind, for her discovery of Christian Science. Thank you and good night.
Thank you. Ingrid from California. Go ahead.
Hi, thank you so much for the great readings always, and again for the amazing, wonderful website. And I wanted to express my gratitude for the many healings that many of the wonderful quotes that convey so much spiritual truth bring us. but especially I wanted to share these two that have blessed me so much in so many different ways, and that we can use for so many different things, and they have never failed me. So I wanted to share this one. The serpent typifies evil, and the snake will lie right beside I say an individual, but who is awake and never touch him or her. But as soon as we fall asleep, he will attack. And this has been such a wonderful protection with so many things. I'm very grateful for that. And the other one is one that I'm still, as with many, just learning more about it because there's so much in them. But that had blessed me so much about just getting away from materiality, bringing more spirituality in daily life, in our thinking. And it says, the determination to hold the spirit in the grasp of matter is the persecutor of truth and love. And just like any spiritual truth, it can be put in any way, reversed, put upside down, and it always seems to work. I have always also done that and just say that to hold the spirit in the grasp of matter is the persecutor of truth and love, and thinking about the determination, which is the first word that it says, and that the same as error is determined to try to bring in harmony or lack or whatever it is in our lives, we can be so determined to know the truth and to practice the truth and to know God's presence and God's help, that really with that determination nothing can touch us. And it is so wonderful to be able to learn and practice and especially bless others and use it to bless others and help others. Thank you so much for this wonderful church.
Thank you. Florence from Georgia, go ahead.
Thank you. I'm so grateful for Christ Jesus and Mary Baker Eddy for making so clear that it is the love of God that unites us all, and that if we love as God loves us, we will feel a part of all mankind. Recently, I was reading the Blue Book, and Mrs. Eddy makes it so clear. He says on page 183, do not tell the truth regarding a lie too often. Insist on obeying the 10 Commandments, especially the first and 8th, which the Christian scientists are most prone to disobey. Thinking about this, it becomes so clear. We know the first commandment. We've talked a lot about it. But the 8th, not to bear false witness. And it just became so clear that truly it's not physical proximity that unites us. It's our thinking about others that unites us. Because I'm sure we've all had experiences where even when you're living with someone, when you're bearing false witness, when you're thinking about them is wrong, holding the wrong behaviors, attaching it to them, and entertaining false thoughts about anyone, it makes you feel apart. Is the truth, the God-seen good about each one of us that unites us. And that has, it really touched my heart to have that deeper understanding and to be aware not to keep any wrong thinking that comes, to make sure that I make the same effort as I wouldn't tolerate an illness, the same effort to also dislodge any false thoughts about others, because this is what makes us feel apart, makes us feel different, because after all, we are of one Father, Mother God. He loves us all. And I'm so grateful that Mrs. Eddy makes that so clear, that this 8th commandment needs to be obeyed also. Really, when we're really thinking rightly about others, it unites us in spirit. And it gives us peace ourselves when we hold right thoughts about others. I'm so grateful to be here tonight, grateful for the music, grateful for all the testimonies. Indeed, I am so grateful for how Mrs. Eddy truly brings Christ's Christianity so clear for all mankind to follow. Grateful to be here tonight.
Mary.
I have some things to read tonight. The first, Dear Plainfield Christian Science Church independent members, please accept the enclosed very special copy of the book from Hawthorne Hall that came into my experience by God's grace with a handwritten note on the inside front cover by the author, William Lyman Johnson. I'm happy to have received it, as it only seems right for you to have it for your ever-growing library. It comes to you as a small token of my deep gratitude and for all you do and stand for. Thank you. With love. When I came into the Sunday school room tonight, there were many boxes of books that some of our members have been sending. Early editions of Science and Health, pamphlets about the history of Christian Science, and many other books. And I would just like to take this time to thank you all very, very much for sending these books to us. We will take very good care of it and let people read and enjoy it as well. And when we can, we will also get it on the internet for everyone to read, not just those who visit Plainfield. And then this one from England. I just wanted to express my sincere thanks for the Bible study and roundtable discussions this weekend, and also an earlier session entitled Financial Rules of the Bible, one of the roundtable discussions, which I also listened to recently. I will certainly be listening to all of these again. Your church's teachings just make so much more sense than anything I have learned before. My husband and I, in many ways, live the life described, very frugally to avoid debt, caring for our possessions. In fact, I still have and wear a couple of jumpers I knitted for myself as a teenager. Being very grateful for provision of all sorts and trying to help with gifts when we feel it's appropriate. Nevertheless, I can see I need to think about how to do this tithe giving presently when I do not have an income. I will be praying about this as your church is doing such important work, and I would very much like to contribute. I am so grateful for your help and for finding your amazing church. And this is a testimony from France. Many years ago, I was traveling in Europe with my family. We had spent the whole year before that with daily deep studying of science and health, and we were filled with the promises of God and had a spiritual outlook on everything. We had a small three-door car, and one evening my daughter, who was about 4 months at the time, did not seem to enjoy the ride anymore. So I decided I'd take her out of her baby seat and put her on my lap on the passenger seat. It was a remote area with nearly no traffic at all. A few minutes later, we slowed down to take a turn to a side road. In that moment, a car hit us from the back and pushed us off the road. We noticed that our car flew off a big ditch that ran down the road, but ended flat in an empty field. Everyone was fine, but all our stuff was scattered around from the back of the car. So that night, we silently thanked God for keeping us safe under all circumstances. Our car remained perfectly operable after a restart, and we continued our trip with a tied-down truck. After arriving back to my country a few weeks later, a new chapter of the story started. I started to arrange for the repairs my car would need, and soon shifted into the human way of thinking. I knew that a few months earlier I had not renewed my all-risk car insurance and that my liability earlier had not renewed, that my insurance would not cover the damages to my car. The other car had no damage, so he had no need for repair. I submitted all the data to the foreign insurer of the other car. The process felt endless. The insurance company told me that the other driver had not reported the case and that I would need to prove that the given car had actually caused the accident. The way seemed blocked. After 2 months, still not being able to get any further, I gave up trying to fix things according to my own thinking. Then I thought, and I turned to God in real humility. And then I thought about going to my insurance company, which I did. The lady at the counter listened to me, looked at the papers, and gently told me that unfortunately they were unable to continue my full risk coverage contract since it had expired. So all they could do in this situation is, after settling my claims and repairs, they conclude a new contract with me. I sat there in awe. I did not understand what just happened. I went there to ask for help with communication, and I was offered full restoration. All the seemingly unsolvable problems that made my past 2 months difficult and worrisome got solved in just a few moments after turning to God for the right answer. I am humbled every time I think of all the wonderful blessings God has bestowed on us, and I am so grateful to Mary Baker Eddy for laying bare the science of His truth. I had one other from our bulletin board, but I'll save that for next week. And I thank you all for contributing in whatever way, whether you speak a testimony or send one in. We're grateful for them. I would first like to thank Florence for the beautiful readings on love and the unity and how Christian Scientists must learn to love each other. It was certainly paramount in the teachings of science. And we had a little discussion tonight about animal magnetism. I always think about it and work to teach it and talk about it at the round table at all our times together, because it is very important to know how to handle animal magnetism. And we know that animal magnetism is a belief in a power other than God. It's a simple way of thinking of it. So, as Gary talked about a battle, yes, because we have to rise above that there is a power apart from God and know there is not. And in knowing that, we can overcome it. There was good examples in it tonight. We had many testimonies of you handling animal magnetism. Era tells you you can't do something, and then you do it. And one case was when it got a little quiet. So what does Era seem to be trying to do? Shut people's mouth up so we have nothing to be grateful for? No, that's not happening. Okay, so we see what it's trying to do, and then what do? We get up and we testify. That's all there is. It's not really rocket science. It's meeting the claim, handling it, overcoming it, and getting past it, whatever that claim is. And it's always different. And it always tries to come tailor-made to make it think it's your thinking, your problem, you can't do it. But it's always an attack on your Christ, on your walking with God, and also on the cause of science. And if you don't let it happen, you've claimed a victory, and guess what? You've handled animal magnetism. Yahoo! And I'm so grateful so many people are doing it and learning how to do it and not backing down. So let it never be said we do not know how to handle animal magnetism, because that just means maybe you're sitting in your prayer chair too long and you got to get up and do something. In Collectania, page 56, Mrs. Eddy says, "Do we not all understand cowardice never conquers? To get rid of temptation of any sort, or to get out of a difficulty, we are not passive and let the wrong rule the right, but we struggle and thus conquer. We should not avoid the things that hurt us, but repeat them and meet them as their superior. Disease is a coward that leaves when you are not afraid of it. Handle animal magnetism, and have a wonderful night.
Thank you.